All right, so it is now time for part 2 of the perception rehabilitation process, which is identification. So in the last section, we looked at awareness and how to be aware of what the body is doing, being aware of the perceptions of the mind, being aware of the beliefs of the spirit. So when we move into phase 2, which is identification, we're going to look at identification in the same platform, identifying the stimuli in the body, identifying the perceptions of the mind, and identifying the underlying beliefs that caused all of this to happen in the first place. So, the process of being aware of the self has undoubtedly started at least a little bit of the process of transformation. But the process needs to be refined, it needs to be focused in order for us to be able to get our desired outcome. Again, awareness is foundational to almost every change model that's out there. And so awareness itself begins transformation. But we want to fine tune it. We want to really, really hone in and get what we want out of it. And that's going to take this identification piece to bridge the gap. Okay? The focal point will be the change process of our lenses and how we see the things, or again, not what we see, but how we see them. All right? Excuse me. As we previously discussed, we're going to develop beliefs through experience and trust in authority. And this change process is going to have both quality and quantity of experiences, though quantity is what we're going to be focusing on, right? So there's going to be some isolated revelation moments as well as some of those slow and steady processes, okay? So the goal is to begin to identify what is believed and chart a course of purposeful experience in order to create those beliefs that we desire and self-generated in order to become what we desire and not solely what other people desire for us, okay? Create the life you want, not the life other people want for you. Some level, this revelation was super freeing for me and was one of the things that motivated me and empowered me to run full force down this path, okay? It's about you, not about what others expect of you, okay? They can be included in the process, but this is about you being safe and healthy, all right? So most change processes meet with resistance, yes, but it's due to that whole self immune system response, okay? When we have changes, they often occur because a person feels like they have to, which is, of course, then met with resistance. So this is one of the unique markers of this particular model of perception rehabilitation, because a change occurs because a person desires it after a great amount of self-examination and uses a method of creating new things instead of just challenging the old things, right? I believe Buckminster Fuller was the one who said, you can't change anything by challenging the existing realities. In order to change something, you have to create a new model that makes the old model obsolete, all right? We're going to be the new model, and that's how we are going to create change within ourselves. So throughout the process, may already be happening, who knows, there's a tendency to be frustrated by what we're identifying and even begin our process of self-judging, based on a pass or fail method or whatever. The key is to understand, please hear me, there is no pass or fail with life, okay? It's a journey of our own creation. No pass or fail. Some changes fit better than others, okay? But fit or not, they're part of the self. Remember, the goal is to be safe with the self, which comes with unity and peace with the self, not by judgment and division, okay? We want peace with ourself, safety within ourself. No judgment allowed. Right, so it's one of the big reasons why challenging these undesired thoughts, perceptions, beliefs, and whatever is not a part of perception rehabilitation, right? So they'll simply be observed and identified in order to construct a new path with new lenses so that we can begin to develop new beliefs within us, all right? No pass or fail, just survival or safety. So just like previous, I like threes. I think that's just kind of how I roll. I don't know. We're going to look at this at identification of ourself in three phases. And again, they correlate to the body, the mind, and the spirit. So we're going to look at it. One, we're going to look at ourself, and then we're going to look into ourself, and then we're going to look through ourself. Okay? At, into, and through. So the first part is looking at our physical self. We're going to look at ourself and begin to identify when the survival stimulus happens. When is the survival mode activated? All of those fight or flight responses that we have in our body. So after awareness of all the physical signs of the survival mode, it should be a whole lot more evident what the survival stimulus looks like throughout the day. So when we look at ourselves, we become aware of the external behaviors and the signs that our survival mode is beginning to kick in. All right. So the view of the self is what everyone else around us sees. So it's easiest to recognize by action and reaction, going to a certain place, whatever, or with a certain person makes us act or feel a certain way. All right. This is a great time to begin to recruit other people that you trust, because again, this is about identification of the self, looking at the body's response. So you may not have known that you were crushing your friend's hand when that person came up and talked to you, but they absolutely knew that. All right. So this is a great time to be able to see through people, through other people's lenses, really, what you look like. All right. This is entirely the how you look like, so that you can begin to see when all of these physiological responses are taking place. All right. So the goal is to identify and even make a list, all right, of the moments in life that the survival mode is activated. Remember, only observation. All we're doing is observing, identifying, right? There's an opportunity to get to know the outside self that everyone else around you sees, right? Some occurrences, they might be really easy to identify. Maybe there's a short fuse around certain individuals, or anxiety about a particular situation or something like that. But some of them are going to be super tiny, all right? Some of them will be maybe substantial. Either way, right? It's often we're a little bit easier to quickly identify the large ones, but we'll begin to practice. We're going to focus our lenses of survival and safety. We're going to get good at finding even the tiny ones, okay? The whole world now is looked at through these lenses, survival and safety, right? Those are our glasses right there. One lens, survival, one lens, safety. And so it's a process of creating these new lenses. And of course, we're going to fine tune them, hone in our tool so that we can better use it for later. All right. So there will be some stimuli that will allow for the entire process to take place all at once. Okay. But most stimuli will take more of a quantity of experience for the transformation to take place. Looking at the self is not a process of doing, remember. It's a process of observing. So once a person has started to become aware of how they look on the outside with regard to activation of the survival mode, internal processes can begin to identify the why this is happening. All right? So this is a process of identifying then the lenses that were used to cause the survival response in the first place. That leads us then to looking into the self, looking at the physical body, looking into the mind so that we can see what lenses caused all that mess in the first place, caused our IBS, caused our anxiety, caused our depression, caused our rage, caused our blood pressure, caused our blood sugar, caused all of those physiological responses that we're now noticing. We're identifying when those take place. Now we're going to look at into ourselves to see what lenses created that in the first place. Okay, so this is a level where we can begin to notice the thoughts, the feelings, as well as the ideals and perceptions that will make them look or behave the way that they do in any sort of a situation. All right, they being our bodies and all of the different situations. So this is where we get into the perception belief cycle, and it's a totally continuous process that can be accelerated by our quality of events, dramatic, traumatic. So we choose whether we are an active or passive participant in this process. As an active participant, you can choose your experiences and participate in the events that guide your beliefs into a desired direction. Okay? No need at this point to make any changes. I'm not making any personal judgments. We're at the phase of rehabilitation that the perceptions of the mind that generated the survival response are going to be looked at. Right? Starts with a process of investigating that appraisal system that takes place around every single situation that we experience. Don't start with every single situation, okay? Some of you want to jump in, you want to evaluate your entire universe and past, present, future, everything all at once. Don't do it, right? It's too much. Just pick out one little tiny thing, that's really evident, really obvious, and we're going to begin to fine-tune the lens. We're going to whittle away with this one at a time. You will notice that there will be multiple perceptions to one underlying belief, or one perception to multiple underlying beliefs. And so we're going to be able to make some large changes with little effort, and some other things will take a lot of effort to make a little change. Okay, it's just how it works, right? So it might not be hard to determine which actions cause the survival mode at first, but as we begin, peeling back the layers of the onion, we're going to get down to which perceptions and which beliefs led us to all of this stuff in the first place. Again, we're just identifying these things. So whether you take mental notes or physical notes, I highly encourage you to actually write this stuff down. Either way, a correlation needs to be made on the basis of survival or safety. Those are the things that we're consistently doing. So let's take the example of jogging. Jogging in early in the morning might be completely threatening, but maybe if the jog was associated with some other activity, then we might perceive that one maybe as a bit safer, right? Maybe at the time of the day, or some other behavior. So association is key for the identification and investigation into the root causes of the perceived threat. All right, it's not just about eliminating the survival stimuli. We have to be constantly moving towards safety. All right, we don't want to just be in lingo in the middle. So the reasons or the ways that we're going to get out of the survival mode is by finding our way to safety. All right, that's kind of the whole premise behind the fight or flight mode in the first place. It wasn't there to activate us to just run for the rest of our lives. You don't just run. You run until you're safe. That's the point of it. Okay, and so that's the point of identifying our perceptions, is to begin to sample and create some new lenses and identify some things that lead us towards safety, not just towards eliminating the negative. We're going to eliminate the negative by reaching towards something that is positive. All right, so looking into the self is a process of identifying existing perceptions, or our lenses, as well as experimenting with some new lenses that we create. So we're now going to build on our existing lenses of survival and safety that have helped us identify the occurrences of the survival mode. So 2 illustrations. Jogging and a scenario at the office. So we got these 2 illustrations. This is where our investigation comes in, specifically perceptual experimentation. So perceptual experimentation is basically placing the identified perception into a ton of different environments to see really kind of where it fits and how we sort ourselves out. All right, it's going to help us to connect the physical response to the correct perception and later to the underlying belief that generated it. All right, so if the behavior that's desired is to get in better shape, which is associated with jogging, then the perception about jogging is going to be what we're going to have some issues with, all right? Because jogging we hate, all right? So that means that there are some compounded associations in there and some compounded perceptions around that make jogging even worse, like maybe waking up early to do it, or whatever, the reasons why we're doing it, or any of those types of things, okay? So our awareness of the mental stress and physical pain that came with jogging has certainly helped to compound, solidify that experience is overlaying and solidifying our belief and our perception about jogging. But is jogging really what is perceived as the threat? Or is it the things that are associated with jogging? We don't know. We just experiment with it and find out. Okay, jogging in the evening or jogging for an important cause. Maybe one of those marchathons or one of those, Race for the Cure or one of these other, those types of events. Maybe we're raising money for a good event. Maybe those things actually make jogging sound like a good idea and actually activate our safety mode when we're thinking about those types of things. These perceptions can be added to the list of survival mode occurrences that were identified while we're looking at the self. We're just kind of journaling this stuff as we go. So every time to switch to an illustration, our boss walks into the office. Boy, full survival mode, we all go crazy, we get all panicky, we get nervous, we start turning stuff off and slapping the keyboard and doing all that stuff when we're really doing anything wrong. But we get this whole survival mode activation, right? Remember, survival mode, we're surviving, it's life-threatening. Is the boss going to kill us? Has the boss already killed somebody? Probably not, all right? Probably not. But the reasons is typically because we perceive that the boss controls our employment. Employment is then associated with our life, or at least our lifestyle. And so the question really is why the natural assumption that bosses are always looking to fire people is what's really making people work out of fear. Fear, of course, being a survival stimulus. So, of course, it's a personal assumption and is a personal perception. So if that's the case, then those are the lenses that we're looking through. So therefore, it's believed that the boss controls our life and the boss is out to get us. And this is where the creation of new lenses comes in, right? Super, super important. Establishing new lenses means that we're no longer locked into seeing the world through our old filters and our old beliefs, all right? And what is or isn't possible, or what we're going to do, what we should do or have to do, or these things, none of that stuff exists anymore. So the best part of the experimentation process is that we get to try on new lenses, and it's kind of awesome. Okay, challenges to making significant or lasting changes comes from how we view the world and ourself as if through a tinted pair of glasses. So as we know, lenses are the same as perceptions, and so we can begin to identify our perceptions by trying on some different lenses. How would a person who loves running think about jogging? Or how would they perceive that change? How would people who, what makes other people love to go jogging? What are their mindsets? What are their beliefs? Why do people love their job and even their bosses? I can't believe it. It happens a lot. right? So what do people feel? Okay. And how do people feel safe around their bosses, and how do they perceive them? So all of this investigation process is all just identifying how we perceive the world and beginning to explore and create, just not get ourselves so stuck in a rut all the time, right? It's a super important piece to how all this stuff works, okay? The most important mindset during this period is that no set of glasses is permanent, all right? Switching them around as often as you want, or you can combine them with other ones, okay? Like the whole 3D glasses and different lenses and all kinds of things, stack them, take one off, put other ones on. Just explore what the world around you looks like through a much greater perspective. Perspective is everything, all right? Perspective is everything. There's no right or wrong, no pass or fail, just survival and safety. Just because a perception causes a person to go into survival mode doesn't make it wrong, okay? We simply have to determine whether or not it's a desired response for that particular scenario, see? So we might even find that we're probably a little too safe and comfortable in a situation that we should perceive as threatening. All right. So identifying all of these situations will allow for proper investigation of then our belief origins, which is where we're going to get into looking through the self. Okay. Looking through the self. Again, another little 3-phase process. When we're looking through the self, we're going to be identifying our existing beliefs. Looking through the self is a way of describing a combination of looking at and looking into the self. So we're going to combine all the pieces previously. And it's a beneficial way of identifying beliefs. And we're going to look at it this way. We'll look at what, why, and how. So what we believe is identified through our actions. This is the looking at the self. Why we believe something is a process of looking at where the belief came from and how it's translated or perceived. And this is looking into the self. And then the final method of identifying beliefs is looking at how we believe something, okay? So the first step, write down what we think we believe. The next step then is to explore why this belief is held. The final stage then is to look at how this belief is manifested. So a simple example of an identified belief is that a person believes that they can walk on water. What? Yes, they believe that they can walk on water. That's the what. And they believe this because a parent has been instructing them about it since childhood. That's the why, right? And they spend time every morning taking strolls on the local lake. That's how they know they believe it, all right? You go, wait, what? Yes, they take strolls walking on the local pond, and so that is how you know they believe, how you know that they believe that they can walk on water. So next, an example of what and how that doesn't match up. So a person thinks they believe that jogging is the greatest thing in the whole wide world and the key to proper health, and they also believe that they should have great things and be healthy. And then the how will be that they jog regularly. If the how answer is that they never jog, then there's a breakdown in what they believe. Okay? They say they believe that jogging is the greatest thing in the world, but they never jog. So either they don't believe it's the greatest thing in the world, or they don't want great things for themselves. Okay? Either way, there's a breakdown in the belief cycle because all we're hearing is a concept. We're not actually seeing the results of the belief, because belief is manifested in our physical form. All right. So if a person, is never doing whatever it is they say that they should always do or believe that they always do, then there's a breakdown. All right. So this is kind of an exercise to begin to break down some of our masks and our detours that we've put up in our life to try and protect us from ourselves. We don't need to be protected from ourselves, all right? We need to know ourselves. We need to be safe with ourselves. Safety comes from knowing what, why, and how we believe so that we can make the proper perceptions and engage in the proper experiences Once the beliefs have been identified, then the building blocks are available to transform ourselves into any self we desire. And this is where the process of planning a safe path is implemented. Moves us into the transformation process.